And welcome into another edition of the Garbage Goal podcast powered by Orlando Lacrosse Report. I'm Patrick Moore along with Colin Turner as always. And we've got a great show for you here this afternoon. And we're looking forward to talking all about buying and selling because it makes so much sense because you sell real estate, I sell roofing. And we're going to talk about whether we're going to buy or sell some of the top opportunities in college and high school lacrosse this spring. And so the next few minutes, we're going to talk about we're going to basically make statements and say, would you buy that or sell that? And again, as we always do, Colin and I both have no idea what we have come up with. And we're just going to share it here with you live right now on the Garbage Goal podcast and see how it goes. And should be extremely interesting, especially considering that you and I are both salesmen and we're both full of it. But before we get into that, considering the fact that we're in the holiday season, Christmas is right around the corner. Thanksgiving was last week. We took a little hiatus from the podcast last week. I spent a week up in the mountains, let my boys run around the woods and paint their faces and hunt down Bambi. I sat around the fire, drank a little whiskey, ate some food, I watched some football. I know that you made the trek to Gainesville to, unfortunately on my behalf, watch your Seminoles whoop on my Gators, which was to be expected. But, there was that glimmer of hope, like what's it?
Just
Dumb
when
and
you
Dumb?
think you had a shot.
What's it? Dumb and Dumber said, so you're saying there's a chance. That's kind of what I was feeling about my Gators, which, into the third quarter pretty much proved me wrong that wasn't going to happen.
Hey,
but
when 70, 80,000 or however many fit in that Hogtown Stadium all sing Won't Back Down in the fourth quarter, they back down by negative 15 yards. It's a hell of a day.
I hate you sometimes, but that's what makes this podcast so much fun. I'm glad that you are having some success for once in your life in college football, and
just once.
I hope that it continues, and I hope that you guys hire Jimbo back and have to pay him a buyout. So how about that?
He's actually going to come be our head janitor. Pretty excited about that.
Unbelievable. I mean, on a total side note, of course, because we all know there's no money in coaching lacrosse. I mean, let's be honest about it. If you've been in the lacrosse world, high school, college, there's very little to no money. And so, you talk about these guys getting buyouts. The best job in America over the last, I'd say 7 to 8 years, maybe 10 years, but about 7, 8 years is not a hedge fund manager anymore, right? It's not working on Wall Street. It is becoming a high-level Division I head football coach and then getting fired because you're going to get a buyout. You're going to make $3 to $10 to $15 million a year, and you're set. And you can still go coach another school and make more money. It's unbelievable. I read where Jimbo Fisher is now making as much money per day than he made his whole first year of coaching, whatever that was, 40 years ago when he coached at Samford University.
At Samford, yeah.
Which is just unbelievable. He made like $26,000 that year. He's making $28,000 a day right now for his $75 million buyout. So
correct. To walk away.
Yeah, just to walk away. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we're paying high school lacrosse coaches $2,500 a year. So
$1,200 for the head coach.
How about that? Or like you, just work for free.
Zero.
So
I work to get yelled at.
You get work to yell at. So here's what we're going to do, folks, on the Garbage Goal podcast today. We kind of came up with this concept. We've heard it on other podcasts, other shows. You kind of heard this.
It's brand new. We came up with it ourselves.
Yeah, we totally original. Totally original.
Yeah.
It's buy or sell. And so what's going to happen is Colin's going to make a statement or I'm going to make a statement and we're going to say, I buy it or I sell it, meaning I don't believe it or I think it's bunk, right? So considering, again, like I said, the fact that we're both sales guys, this is a lot of fun for us. And of course, as always, right? So for those of you listening, and if you have a team that gets mentioned or you know a team or whatever, listen, take all this with a grain of salt. We are still several months away from high school and men's and college lacrosse starting. We know very little to nothing about Florida Lacrosse. We pretend to know as much as we can, but like I do, anything can happen. So don't get your drawers in a wad. But if you want to, go ahead and post it on Instagram and tag us.
Yeah, let us know.
We'll repost it. Why not? So, Colin, why don't you kick it off? Because I know you have a longer list than I do. So go ahead.
Yeah, I came up with 7 different buy or sell topics. And so just because a nice segue of what we just talked about, I'm going to go and ask you, there will be more high school head coaching job vacancies in 2024 than there were this year.
Oh, I buy that. I buy that
Mm-hmm.
big time. Yeah, I think there's going to be. I think that we've already seen a few locally in Central Florida that opened up, and I know a couple of them have been filled. One of them is still looking to be filled at a pretty good sized public school here in Orlando. I'm not going to mention it because it may have been filled by now because you never know how
Yep.
that bureaucracy takes. But yeah, I agree. I think some of that's going to be based upon attrition, just guys that
Yep.
have been doing this a long time and they're ready to, go see their families in the spring, or do something different,
Yep.
but I buy that for sure.
100% buy. It was so funny. I saw an ex head coach with their kids at Saturday at third grade basketball, and he's coaching the team, and he'd never look happier. And I walked up to him and was like, "What? Is this what you traded in for?" And he goes, "Yes." And guess what? I don't get yelled at. All I have to do is just make sure the kids actually don't stick their fingers in their nose.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of coaches that want to go to the good programs and not start or build. It's very hard. I started at Boone High School back in the day, which is still a good program, but it was a program that you worked at. It didn't have a strong youth. And then made my way to Winter Park. And I mean, it's crazy to think Ryan Healy did the same. It was almost the same path, except he was at Winter Park, then Florida State, then Boone, then back to Winter Park. But it's crazy to see some of these predominant programs still have head coaching vacancies and what's going on. So, and unfortunately, in today's environment, I think there'll be multiple coaches next year that just say it's not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of things involved in that. There is the youth programs or lack thereof. There is just maybe support from the school. I recently talked to a parent at a public high school who just talked about there's just not any support for the program, for their boys program at their high school. And I don't think it's necessarily intentional as much as it is. They have other programs that are just more recognized and get more attention. Coaching a high school sport in general, you really just have to do it because you love it, right? There's just nobody's getting rich in high school sports. In high school lacrosse, boys and girls is both, kind of that middle lower tier of paid coaching job at a high school level. And so, you have to do it because you love it, not because you're trying to make any money. And then the last component of it is, and it pains me to say it because I'm one of them, is the parents. Like, do you have good parents? Do you want to put up with the parents? Are the parents making it more difficult, making it more, whatever it is, how is that all working out for you? So I'm with you on that one.
And also, so I'm going to take the second one because you literally are walking into the second one. So, and again, this is going to tick people off, which I'm fine doing in my life. But in today's game in Central Florida, do you think the Big Four will contribute to dominate Central Florida? Lake Mary, Winter Park, Bishop Moore, and Lake Highland Prep. And I say this statement within piggybacking off the coaching vacancies of a lot of predominant programs that are no longer there and don't have that had the history that are no longer competitive today. So again, do you think the Big Four will continue to dominate Central Florida lacrosse? Lake Mary, Winter Park, Bishop Moore, and Lake Highland Prep?
I'm going to buy that, and I'm going to buy that for the near future, right? So I'm talking about, the next 3 to 5 years. I buy that. I totally buy that. Now, here's what I'll say about that. I think that there are some programs that are on the cusp of making that upward trend and being more competitive. Can they get out of their region, right? So not just their district, right? Like, so you think about the district with like Freedom, Dr. Phillips, Lake Nona, those teams, Olympia, those teams are all, beating up on each other and they'll win the district. But can they make that next jump to beat a team like, quite frankly, beat a team like Winter Park, right? That has consistently put out results year after year. Now, we're privy to that because we're involved in Winter Park, but a lot of that has to do with the success of the youth program. And every year you're sending many, many kids to the high school that are ready to play. Same thing happens at Lake Highland. Same thing's happening at Bishop Moore, and the same thing is happening at Lake Mary. Lake Mary and Winter Park have been neck and neck in that type of program. But I do think there are some programs that are on the cusp of getting there. I do think we're going to see in the next maybe 5 years or so, you're going to see some of these programs coming back, like potentially the Boones, the Lake Brantleys,
Haggerty,
really
Oviedo,
the Haggerty,
Lyman.
Oviedo. I'm really loving what I'm seeing from the guys out at Seminole. Like they're putting in the
Mm-hmm.
work. They're building their youth program. They're partnering with other club programs. So I'm going to buy it for right now, but I do think that it's going to shift and change over time if these programs will commit to building their youth and continue to build their high school programs to be more competitive. So we'll see what happens. But I do think there's more potential, straight up, there's more potential in Central Florida than any area of Florida across the state. South Florida, Tampa, North Florida. I think there's more potential in Central Florida to have more successful programs than anywhere in the state of Florida right now. So
yeah, and I would agree. I'm a buy as well, and you said it, and we don't need to get into it anymore because you just eloquently handled this. It's all about the youth programs. Winter Park Lacrosse Club youth. You've got the Swarm for Bishop Moore. I think
Mohicans, Lake Mary.
Mohicans is Lake Mary. I think they may have changed to the Lacrosse Club of Lake Mary or one of those. I think they're branding just like we are. And then you've got Lake Highland Preps.
Braveheart.
What are
Braveheart?
Braveheart. That's right.
Yep.
Again, I'm in the youth circle now with my son. I don't coach because it's just immediately cry session. But every time I'm out at those games, it's those 4 teams. And then you've got some like the Stags that are out there. They've got a youth program that they're building out there. But it's 100% you.
And I gotta give a shout out to Windermere in West Orange. Yep. They were unfortunately the victim of schools splitting, where half of their team a couple years back ended up going to Windermere, half stayed at West Orange. They've had some kids transfer to Mount Verde and back and whatever. But I think there's a lot of potential in that area as well, where both of those programs, public school wise, have a ton of potential, and they do have good youth programs and good developmental programs. So I think they're going to be something that's going to come on the rise that, if we're still doing this in 5-6 years or something like that, those might be teams we're going to be talking about that are competing beyond the district and at the regional level, potentially making an impact at the state level. So
I agree.
All right. So here's my buy or sell. I'm going to switch gears to college lacrosse. Here's my buy or sell. Rollins, and I had to do this way because I just couldn't commit to one. But
oh God, I mean, there's not a team, and I don't know Tampa's roster as much as I know Rollins' roster after talking with their coaches. They are loaded for bear this year.
Yeah.
They've had some unfortunate injuries, I think, but at the end of the day, that goalie. I'm a big defensive guy. That's if you can control the cage and get things moving forward, I got to go with the hometown team. I'll buy. I think Rollins got a hell of a chance. They got knocked out early last year. They bring a core of that offense and defense back. I got to think that they're going to – I think Rollins has a shot. I mean, you throw in Tampa, who's been a predominant program in the state of Florida as well. So between those two, 100%.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying it because, last year we had Rollins, we had Tampa, we had Florida Southern, all ranked in the top 10, 12 positions in Division II men's lacrosse, college lacrosse. Yep. I think that Florida Southern is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. They can beat either one of those teams in the regular season in the Sunshine State Conference. But Tampa has made great use of the portal. They have brought in a lot of great players, just like Rollins has done. I think it's just going to be a matter of who can make a run, have the confidence to go out and just say, hey, we're just going to beat everybody. And then more importantly, make the run that's necessary in playoffs to get to that national championship game. Rollins came up short. Tampa came up short last year. But I think both of them are teams that could win the national championship. And I think one of them will win it this year, which if they do, I think it's the most amazing thing that could happen for Florida lacrosse in general. So anyhow, that's that on the college lacrosse front. So What do you got for us?
All right. And we've talked a lot about this previously before, and I didn't really dive in. A shot clock is a good thing for high school lacrosse.
I buy it. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think the shot clock is a must. I think it should happen. Now, here's the flip side, and here's the cynical side of it. And we've talked about this on past podcasts here on the Garbage Goal podcast. Who's going to run the darn shot clock? It's like, and I get it. Like, and I know that's part of the pain point when it comes to the basketball, the high school basketball. Like, it's already difficult enough to get somebody to run your scorebook. You got to get referees there. You got to have somebody run the clock. all those kinds of things. So it is a logistical thing that puts some pressure on the schools to find another person because somebody's got to be on it. And, it's important. But I do think, they do it for football. So it's like, why can't we do this? We should be doing this. It speeds the game up, gets more shots, makes more action, and makes the game, in my opinion, it makes the game more exciting.
So I'm going to sell. I don't think it's a good thing overall, where we just literally had a conversation about 4 teams in Central Florida, and it was hard for us to think about a 5th team. So you get these high achieving teams that have the talent, that have the roster to be able to do it, and they're battling lower level teams all the time. And I personally think in today's juncture, maybe 10 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, where there's more programs participating in it, I think it'll turn kids off, because we've all been there. I've been on the culprit. You talk about West Orange when they had school split, when Mikey Berkman lit us up for, I think, 20 points when I was coaching at Winter Park High School, when they had 87 players on their roster. And, there's nothing we could do. And so we, on the flip side, we don't score on teams like that. When we get up, we have a rule. And unfortunately, we pick the choice just to move it around. It's demoralizing, I guess, regardless. It makes them uncomfortable. But our rule is that we're not going to light people up. And if you put a shot clock in, we're going to have to light people up. I think it'll deter a lot of the developing programs personally. And I also think it's hard enough to get volunteers that want to come to our games. Football's different. They have 100 kids on the sideline. They've got all of the people that are there, way more support by most of the high schools for these teams that are having, multiple teachers and admin there, where lacrosse programs maybe have one. And unless your coach is an AD or something like that, then you have 0. We got to get our own ticket takers. We got to get our own sound guys. We got to get all of that. So I think it would just be another headache on the coaching staff, the assistants, and all of that. And then obviously I think it deters kids.
Yeah, I get that. I think it's a valid point, but I'm still buying it. And I still think we should be able to let kids jump in the crease, but that's a whole other thing. Yep. So we're going to go full PLL on this thing.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my next one for you. Buy or sell. Lake Highland Prep is going to make it to the 1A state championship game against St. Andrews this year.
Oh, I get to do the next one. This is going to work well. 100%. They've got, again, 100%. I say that without certainty it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a tough road, regardless, in the 1A division to get there to that final game. But Lake Highland has got all the right kids in all the right positions. They grew a hell of a lot last year, where people were doubting that they'd be who they were, and they proved everybody wrong. And I think they've only gotten stronger. And you talk about resources, they're fully supported and ready to go. So Vandermeulen's one hell of a coach. I respect the heck out of that guy. I think he's got the right mindset for it. He's not 100% lacrosse every single day, lets his kids breathe, do different things. And I think he's going to take one home this year, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy it. I think that Lake Highland is going to have a great schedule this year. They're going to play some tough games. I saw they're playing Ponte Vedra. They're playing Lake Mary. They're playing Winter Park. They're going to play Bishop Moore like they do every year. They've got a great schedule on tap. So they're going to be well prepared for the playoffs.
A lot of good out-of-state teams too, I think, right?
They do. Yep. They have some out-of-state games, which, we'll talk about that as we get closer to the season. But, I think that they will do fine in the district. I think Bishop Moore has an up-and-coming team, but I think they'll handle Bishop Moore. They'll be fine against Mount Verde, any of those kinds of teams. But when it comes to the region, I think they're gonna make pretty good work of getting through the region, and then they're gonna, depending on, and that's kind of the unknown. This is hypothetical, right? Because it all depends on how the 1 through 4 bracket works out with with their region or with the Final Four. So they could end up playing St. Andrews in the semifinal versus the final. But I kind of feel like they're probably going to be that number 2 seed. St. Andrews, as long as they don't just crap the bed altogether, they're probably going to be the number 1 seed again. And then hypothetically, you're going to have Lake Highland at that number 2 seed, and then probably a Jesuit or a Benjamin or one of those schools in that 3-4 seed down there. Yep. But I would just love to see Lake Highland make it to that final game and have a chance Again, coming back to Dumb and Dumber, you're saying there's a chance. I would love to see those guys. I think that Lake Highland, although they might not be the deepest 1A team, although I don't know that most 1A teams are super deep, in that they're mostly private schools.
Yep.
I just think that they're super talented. I mean,
Yep.
They have a great face-off kid in Max Rader, who I think is one of the best face-off kids in the state. And I just love the kid, just a hustler, grinds,
Yep.
works hard. Jack Fiore in the midfield, Owen Lennox, and both those guys are going Division I commits. Max Rader's committed to Tampa. They have a good defense. They've got good athletes. And again, they have great support for the program.
Yep.
So I think that they're going to be in that championship game. And, man, I would just love to see them whack St. Andrews or whoever it ends up being and win one again. Especially since they're not they're not playing the public schools anymore.
Correct.
So I'm okay with them winning.
We could blow through this one. This was my buy or sell for you. The state champion 1A will not be named St. Andrews.
Buying it. I'm buying it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm buying it.
For everything we just said. So
yep, totally.
All right, I'm going to change this up, get a little controversial on us here. Buy or sell, high school should not allow transfers.
Oh, man. So this is a tough one. So I'm old school, right? You and I both grew up here in Orlando.
Before you get into it, just to make sure everybody understands, if you haven't listened to this before or whatever, in all of the districts in Orange County, for the most part, I'm not talking in certainties here, you have to live within the district to be able to go to school to go to that school. In Seminole County, those rules don't follow as much, right? So you have a lot of movement in Seminole County, or kids are declaring to go study a certain thing to go play sports, or they're moving a lot. So that's the big conversation. And people are moving houses and moving different areas, which is a different thing if you make that decision. But what I'm talking about is if you live in XYZ school and you decide I'm going to go jump ship and go over to XYB school and play for them. Sorry.
Yeah. So what it boils down to in Florida is essentially it's like the school choice thing. And to kind of clarify, like what you were saying with Orange County, which is, which people would consider primarily Orlando, right? That's Orlando. You can go to a school within your county, no problem, as long as there is opening at that school, meaning it's not a capacity. Okay. And so the problem with Orange County is that most of the schools are at capacity, especially the schools that most people would consider the top schools. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when you run into schools where you want to go, maybe because of the socioeconomic area, the resources that school has, the facilities, whatever it is, those schools are at capacity. Like Windermere High School is in Orange County. Windermere High School just got built in the last, 5-6 years. They're already at capacity. They're talking about having to add more buildings because they're out of room. Okay. Yeah. So you can't go from, like East Orlando to Windermere High School because there's no room.
From Winter Park to Windermere, you can't. Yep.
Yeah. So the what you run into is that you run into Seminole County, Lake County, other schools or other counties where their schools might not be at capacity, and you're in that county and you can easily transfer. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And listen, it is what it is. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. We're just talking about it. So I grew up old school. I grew up like you grew up. You go to that school, you see it through, you ride it through. Now, in full transparency, I went to a private school. I went to Orangewood down the road, which didn't even know what lacrosse was. And so like I always went through there. Now, I was actually zoned because I lived in Seminole County, Maitland. I would have gone to Lyman High School. My brother went to Lyman High School. They were terrible at football when he was there, but he went all the way through. He could have transferred to Lake Brantley, gone to Lake Mary, but he didn't. It's just I don't. I guess I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Like, I don't think. I guess am I selling it? Because I don't know exactly how to word it. How you word it. If
you don't agree with it, so the question was, should high school transfers not be allowed?
Yeah. So. Yeah,
sports,
I'm buying that. I'm buying that they should not be allowed. I'm buying it. Like, I think that there needs to be it needs to go back to what it was, where it needs to be a little bit tougher to get into a school for a legit reason, not just because, Johnny's not feeling it at XYZ school. And listen, we're seeing it in every sport. I literally saw a kid tonight. Literally saw a kid tonight as I was eating Five Guys burgers, okay, who transferred from a high school to another high school. I think like 2 weeks after school started, so he could go play quarterback at another high school. All right, and he
again,
did
it's
go
not
play
the first time
quarterback at
that's
the high
happened.
school. And
Correct.
it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I'm very close to this conversation, and I've learned more. Mike Tyson's famous quote, right? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Yeah. I've learned more from getting punched in the face as a team with my friends in battling through things. And to think that I didn't like the situation, that I just want to jump and get away. I just think that teaches a lot of bad things, a lot of lessons of life to go through. I also believe playing for my hometown, and that's who I am. I don't care if we're 0-12 or 12-0, which the Seminoles are, by the way. It feels odd. I hate it in college football. I hate it in college in general. So to think of it's coming down even to our level, and it's a very real conversation. I don't like it. I wish they'd put much more stringent rules on it or something like that. But I think it's something we're going to have.
My bigger concern with all of this stuff, with like the transferring and all that kind of stuff, like, and we've seen it. We've seen some high school teams, in private school it happens, right? Like, yep. You live out in Timbuktu.
You're pay
they don't even, they don't have a lacrosse program, or they're terrible. And so you send your kid, 30 minutes down the road to private school. That's happened forever. But on the private school ranks, my bigger concern is for really the growth of the game. And listen, it's easy for me to say my kids played at Winter Park. I have one still playing at Winter Park. We've grown our youth program. We've been successful. So it's not as easy to say this if you were a parent at a school where, like, they're winning like 5 games a year and they're not competing.
No resources. Yeah.
It has no resources, no support. So I get that. I'm sympathizing with that. But at the same time, the bigger concern I have is that we have to be able to grow the game at other schools. Like, other schools have got to get better at this game. We cannot forever, like, if I'm 45, if it's in 20 years from now, if I'm 65 and we're still only talking about Lake Highland, Bishop Moore, Lake Mary, and Winter Park, I'm just going to be so disappointed. Yeah, like this podcast failed. We should just delete it from the internet. We never existed. You know what I'm saying? So
that may happen anyways.
That's we've got to do better. But that's my bigger concern, is that if you have 3 or 4 kids, because like if you have 3 or 4 really good players and you build a team around those guys, of guys that will commit and will play and learn, you can compete at the 2A, especially in my opinion, at the public school level.
And you're talking about a team. That's exactly right. It's the culture to build. And like, I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name at East River, the kid that was a long pole. Oh my God, it's going to frustrate me. Dynamic long pole. East River predominantly is not a very successful lacrosse program. They play hard. They were coached well that time. I don't know who the coach is this year or the previous, but I mean, he was just a good player, played on the summer league team we had in Orlando and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's the talent's out there. Just needs, again, parents and coaches to come back and get them. So, all right, you're up.
All right, so here's mine. So buy or sell? Lake Mary will lose a regular season game this year.
I mean, same path here. My buy or sell is Lake Mary. Lake Mary will go undefeated and win the state championship. So I love this question. I love the way you asked it, too. I think one of the hardest things to do in sports, I don't care what it is to go back to back, because year one, you're fighting to get whatever you want, that thing, and you've got the list, you've got it going, right? And then now year 2, you got to do the exact same stuff, all the hard work, all the off-season stuff, but you've already tasted success. Now, Lake Mary returns everybody, right? And the other big thing about being a good team, there's a huge target on your back, where you may have come in and snuck by people, or you may have come in unnoticed and then stepped on them. There's no one sleeping on Lake Mary this year. You're going to get every single team's good game, and they want to beat the state champion. It's everything that people are going to talk about. So I'm going to buy that they will have they will have a loss this year, but I wouldn't be shocked if you told me they ran the table again and won a state championship, because they're that talented.
Yeah, so looking at their schedule, they've got a really tough schedule. They're playing all the best teams they can find in Florida. They're playing all the names you would know. They're playing like Highland. They're playing Bishop Moore. They're playing Ponte Vedra. They're going, I believe, up to Georgia to play. They're playing everybody they possibly can logistically that they're allowed to play within the Seminole County.
They're not running from anybody.
No, they'll play anybody. And so they've got a great schedule. I think that the game that they'll play against Lake Highland will be the best game locally that we will see. I'm going to be there for sure, as long as we don't have a game, which hopefully we don't. I will be there with bells on, probably just, posting ridiculous comment on Orlando Lacrosse Report. But I am going to buy. I think they're going to lose. I think they are going to lose one in the regular season. I'm going to get hell from this from all my Lake Mary friends and dads. But, all that said, I think all that's going to do is just validate the fact that every team is going to bring their A game against them. Every team is going to scheme against them. Every team is going to bring everything they possibly can to try to figure out a way to finagle a win out of them. That being said as well, I think that's just going to just build them more momentum into, them running the table through playoffs. They are absolutely the favorite. I don't think that any team, quite frankly, in 2A has a chance against them other than possibly St. Thomas Aquinas. But I think that might even be a stretch at this point. So it's really their state championship to lose. It just depends on how they respond to it. So we'll see how it all goes, see how it all plays out. So what you got?
Heavy he wears the crown, or whatever that phrase is, right? I mean, that's
heavy is
they
he
got to
who
carry
wears
it
the
everywhere
crown.
they go.
Absolutely. Yep. Big target on their back.
Mm-hmm.
So got any more for me? What you got for buy or sell?
I got one more since we doubled up on a few. It's a stream of thought here, and this is coming from a public school kid. Do you think these creations of like local leagues, and I'm trying to think about how to say this, all the private lessons that I see going on are creating their own teams and they're doing their own things. Is that a good thing for the growth of the game? Did I make that a buy or sell? Is it a good thing for the growth of the game having all of these private lesson teams? And then even we can spin this off in a whole nother conversation, the travel teams. But it's amazing, and I wonder what the economics are behind that. But it seems like it would cost my family out versus just go hit the wall or throw with your friends.
So I'm gonna buy it that it's a good thing. Okay. And I'm gonna buy it that it's a good thing. And again, I've said this multiple times during this episode, is that I think it's a good thing long term. In the short term, we still have a pool of guys. There's 100 players in Orlando that are what we consider, middle of the road, high level lacrosse players. And there's kind of everybody else. And I think that those guys playing on different teams, playing with more caliber, playing better competition is good. I did worry about this more a couple years ago where it was getting watered down and diluted a little bit. But now I'm just kind of like, let's just get as many kids playing as possible. My bigger thing as a parent, having done this and now kind of being a, amateur, terrible, lacrosse analyst or whatever you want to call this thing. It's just pathetic that I am. But, watching these kids like train and play is, as long as they're getting better, and again, it's bringing more success to their program, their high school program, I'm all for that. Because I just don't think that I think that if we don't allow these kids to get better, by taking lessons and then also playing better competition, I don't think these other programs are going to get better. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think you need that little notch up above the developmental club stuff that we do locally in Orlando to kind of get kids playing at a little bit higher level. So I'm going to buy it.
I sell it. Again, I come from now I'm a grumpy old man. We've made a lot of grumpy old men statements on this. I believe in multi-sport athletes. You look at the Ponte Vedra, you look at Lake Mary. A lot of those guys are football guys. You see a lot of I believe Bowles and them. I mean, again, I know Tom had that relationship when he was at Ponte Vedra and cultivated that. I think they both left for Bowles, but the ability to have multi-sport athletes, basketball players, football players, doing other things, I think is so much better for our athletes in the long run than doing lacrosse all the time. And more specifically, what with the private lessons. I mean, my family would not have afforded that. And to think that like, that's, if kids want to get in and play, like that may be what they have to do to get into it. Just, I don't know, feels odd. I think done in the right thing, because this isn't just a lacrosse thing. My kids play youth sports, and there's opportunities for them to go do whatever, and cheerleading and private lessons and guitar and all that other crap. But I truly come from the go out and kick some rocks when you're not playing lacrosse. Go do, go surf, go play golf. It's better to do other things and also get back into your sport, I guess. So,
yeah. I think I also think you're probably talking about a couple different things. Like, my two older boys, Garrett and Griffin, who both play at Flagler College. Griffin and Garrett both hunt, they fish, they surf, they love golf. Griffin played basketball in high school. Garrett played baseball up till middle school or so, even tried football in high school. So, they're fairly well-rounded athletically, but they just sort of like said, hey, lacrosse is my thing. And it's 100%. A little bit it's a little bit the way that I was. Like, I did take some lessons, quote unquote, playing basketball growing up, but I also did play soccer, and I played golf in high school for fun. And I didn't put a lot of thought and energy into it. I just basically showed up and played. So it's a tough situation, because lacrosse still has the stigma of being a expensive sport, a rich kid sport, whatever you want to call it. But the truth of the matter is parents are going to pay for it because their kids want to do it. My cousin runs this thing called QB Universe, which is one of the biggest quarterback academies in the country. DJ Lagway, who's going to be the quarterback at Florida next year, has gone through it. He was in their program. He's their best recruit, and he went to the best school he could find, which is Florida, because nobody wants to go to Tallahassee. So anyhow, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think there's just so many dynamics and things in that. I'm just sort of the point where it's like, listen, if kids are playing and they're playing competitively and the parents can afford it and they want to do it and the kid wants to do it, then just go do it. And let's get as many kids playing as possible. Because now we have like multiple layers of lacrosse that we didn't have before. Like, if you wanted to play high level 6 years ago, the only place to go play was Sweet Lax. That was it. Now you got True, you got FLC, you've got kids
watering it down.
But if you don't add more opportunities, you can't have more kids go play. So it's like a catch-22. I mean, it's there's no perfect answer. I think where you and I get burned out on this lacrosse stuff is just how much money it costs and how much money people put out on silly stuff. Like,
and it's not just lacrosse. We're not just picking on lacrosse and all. No,
just in general.
It's every sport.
Yeah.
7-year-old cheerleading is ridiculously expensive. Thought I'd get into that. And I was like, absolutely not. So no, again, you're talking to a guy that's coached for 11 years and made $0. And it's not the reason I coach lacrosse. It's because I love it. And I love being around the game and doing stuff. And obviously that's what it is. But you think about the monetization of all youth sports. And I look at some of these guys that are doing the youth program, which I'm so thankful for. I'd love to see them be head coaches, to go take a program on, to build a youth culture that way at another, you know what I mean? Like, to see these guys that have all the talent in the world to go be a head coach.
But they can make more. They can make more money coaching U12 travel lacrosse than they can coaching high school. That's where the rub comes, right? Yeah. Like you can make $60,000-$70,000 a year coaching U12, U14 for some travel, big national club or whatever it is, or you can go get a high school PE job and have to get in the school system and then get paid $2,500 a year or whatever it is to coach high school lacrosse and be an afterthought by the school program, the school system. Yep. So it's a tough situation. It's unfortunate, but I'm like you. I get frustrated. I think my biggest frustration with like the travel lacrosse and all this kind of stuff is the thing that I see is that parents guilt themselves into doing everything. And I just stop people and go, listen, what does your kid want to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Or you just want to go have fun? Do you want to just go compete at a higher level? Does he just want to play with his friends? Is he wanting to get recruited? What is it? Like, just, what is this thing that you're trying to accomplish? And then let's, once you get to wherever that goal is, let's work it backwards. And quite frankly, if you can't afford it, don't do it. I mean, it's stupid to kill yourself to do something you can't afford. And if you can't afford it, you don't have to do everything. I mean, for the love of everything, I've seen a kid, a top tier kid. I watched it firsthand with one of my boys. And this kid is playing, he's at a top Division I program right now, not the top in the country, but one of the top, 20 or 30 country. I don't know if he'll ever play. He hasn't played yet. But they literally did every single thing you could possibly do. Travel, showcases, training. It was just crazy. Now, maybe the kid wanted it. I don't know. And the parents could afford it. I don't know. It just seemed crazy to me. I'm like, I want to go have my 4th of July holiday. That's me with my family. I want to shoot some fireworks instead of being at some showcase in, Branson, Missouri or something, But that's just me.
And I think we can leave it at this. And if you've lasted this long, you're a hardcore lacrosse person. But Patrick said it a couple times. If you've got the wherewithal to want to do it and your child wants to do it, great. But don't think you have to. There are so many good, very cost-effective lacrosse programs that you can join in the spring and summer and get into it. Most programs will also have recommendations for lacrosse gear and all of that. But there's a lot of cost-effective ways. And some of the best athletes we've ever had were football and basketball players, and we wouldn't see them for 5 months until they showed up, and they were fine.
Absolutely.
They were good to go. So,
well, we're going to wrap up the episode with this because I was doing a little bit of research, which took me all of about 39 seconds. We are currently, if you go into Apple Podcasts and you search lacrosse, we're like the number 12 podcast in Apple Podcasts right now for lacrosse. So
is that out of 12? Are we 12 out of 12?
Well, no, I think there's like 20. So
perfect.
We're we're right there. We're moving up the ranks.
We're making it.
On Spotify, we're the number 5 podcast in our category. So Let's go. Crushing it right now on the Garbage Goal podcast.
Meter rocket ship or whatever it's called.
So our goal is to be in the top 5 of lacrosse podcasts. The top one out there is Inside Lacrosse, which is like the big lacrosse resource nationally. We're probably never going to trump those guys, but unless we get Trump on our podcast, which we need to talk about that. But if we can get the top 5, we are going to be balling. So I'm finally going to get that Traeger that I've been trying to save up for. We're going to make some money on the sponsorship stuff. But man, this was fun. I appreciate the time doing this. Buy or sell. We are getting closer to Christmas. We're going to be getting a few more guests here. And then after the first year, we're going to start getting into more like talking about what the season's looking like. Because, I mean, we're, 60, 80 days away from the season starting.
Well, you're 30-ish days away from conditioning starting, and you're probably another 30 days away to actually practice. I think February 2nd or 3rd is like the first practice for most people. But
it's coming fast. So make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, sharing with your friends. Of course, like you said, if you made it this far in the podcast, you're hardcore. We appreciate it. And we love all our listeners on the Garbage Goal podcast. And we're looking forward to next time. So, Colin, appreciate it, man. And
yes, sir.
I'll send you my Christmas list, and you can give me that new Traeger. All right. Till next time, everybody. Thanks.